June 10th, 2022. A resident of Krasnodar, Sergei Bugarkov, and his wife Alena went to the police to report the disappearance of a 5-year-old boy named Vova. Vova was Alena's son from a previous marriage. According to the parents, earlier that same day, just a few hours before, the whole family went on a trip together. They chose the bank of the Kuban River as the place for their picnic. During a break between meals, Vova noticed a cat nearby and decided to feed it. After he stepped away for a few minutes, no one saw him again. The search for the child began promptly. Volunteers from the Liza Alert team and police officers started searching the area around the Kuban River. Later, concerned citizens joined them. Alyona and Sergei, of course, also became members of the newly formed volunteer group, which included about 100 people. The picturesque place was shrouded in an air of mystery, as it seemed the boy had vanished here without a trace. The next day, on June 11th, to the misfortune of Vova's parents, his lifeless body was found at the Pashkovskaya crossing. After the worst was discovered, it was necessary to find out who had committed the crime against the boy. The questioning of Sergei and Alyona began, since they were the ones at the scene and could share important information with the police. They clarified all the details, what happened at the picnic, whether there were any strangers nearby, and exactly when the boy disappeared. Unable to withstand the pressure from the investigators, the couple unexpectedly confessed that they themselves got rid of Vova. Later, the police and everyone who was worried about the fate of the 5-year-old boy learned how it happened. On the evening of June 8, 2022, Sergei Bugarkov and Alyona, together with her 3 children, 2 girls and Vova, were in the apartment located on Tulieva Street. At some point, a conflict arose between the stepfather and the stepson, supposedly because the boy asked to visit his grandmother. At her home, he always felt calm and happy. Sergei grew irritated as the sobbing child pestered him with requests, not letting him relax. When the stepfather's patience finally ran out, he decided to teach Vova a lesson. According to some sources, the man beat the boy with his hands. According to others, he used a wooden massager and a charger cable. All 38 blows were mostly to the head. Soon, kicks were used as well. Sergei, who was already finding it hard to stop, kicked the boy a couple of times with force. After some time, the boy's mother got involved in the process as well. In the end, Vova was slammed against a window pane which broke and the shards injured his face. The scuffle ended with everyone in the apartment eventually going to sleep while the injured boy was left in the room where he had been beaten. In the morning, the adults went to wake Vova, but he didn't wake up. His heart had stopped during the night. When Sergei and Alyona found out that the boy was dead, they weren't particularly upset. They were only worried about one thing: what to do with the body. Alyona immediately had a brilliant idea: to take the body to the forest and bury it there. Sergei put the stiffened Vova into a travel bag and left the apartment. A hidden surveillance camera captured the moment when he was walking through the entrance hall with his grim burden. Sergei transported the body to a wooded area near the Kuban River in the Hydrostroy district, where he buried it. The next day, the Bugarkov family deliberately went on a supposed picnic to stage the boy's disappearance. They thought the traces of the crime were well hidden, but it took only a day to find the body. After the shocking confession, 31-year-old Alyona and 28-year-old Sergei were taken into custody. As it turned out later, the couple was expecting another child, this time together. Therefore, until Alyona gave birth, she remained free. When the baby girl was born, she was immediately taken to an orphanage. The reason for this was not only the monstrous violence the couple inflicted on little Vova. From now on, besides their names, some details of their lives also became known throughout Krasnodar. It turned out that for several years, Alyona had been a woman of easy virtue, for which she was repeatedly fined, and she often changed men. By the way, all of her children had different biological fathers. When Sergei Bugarkov moved into her apartment in 2019, the children's lives partly turned into hell. The oldest, Alyona's 11-year-old daughter, Angelina, said they were punished even for the slightest misdeeds. 5-year-old Vova got it the worst, for example for picking his nose, crying too loudly, or scattering his toys. But his sisters got punished too. They were forced to stand on buckwheat and salt, were beaten, and were made to hit Vova. Anything could be a reason for such torture: bad grades, disobedience, or small mischief. Angelina often came to school covered in bruises when the daughters were sent to live with their grandmother after their mother was arrested. They admitted that they didn't want to go back to Alina. Angelika Lyubimova, Alina's mother, said that she always worried about the fate of her grandson Vova and wanted to take him in. However, the guardianship authorities did not deem it necessary to strip Bugarkova of her parental rights. The grandmother managed to win back even her grandson with great difficulty. After her husband's daughter was arrested, Angelina Lyubimova was not allowed to see the girls, even though her desire to take the children under her wing was beyond question. When she found out that her beloved Vova was gone, the grandmother was truly shocked. They were very close. The boy spent most of his time at her house.
And will you be visiting Bugarkova?
Oh, no.
So for you they are, you could say, no longer your relatives?
June 9.
After giving birth to another child, Alyona would bring the baby to her mother and focus on her personal life. According to the neighbors, at some point the woman suddenly took all her children and they started living separately. However, this decision was made purely out of self-interest because Alyona received decent benefits for her daughter and son. Alyona cancelled the children's attendance at extracurricular clubs in school and kindergarten, which had been part of their daily routine when they lived with their grandmother. She didn't see any point in it. Several court hearings were held in the case concerning the deprivation of Vova Pashchenko's life. Initially, the Bugarkov spouses blamed each other. In the end, Alyona admitted that yes, she really did show aggression towards the children and systematically beat them. However, the investigator had irrefutable evidence that Sergei was no less of an aggressor in their family, even though he tried to present himself in a better light and even created the image of a superhero. He claimed that he stopped his wayward wife during her fits of rage and tried to protect the unfortunate children from her.
He tried to talk sense into you and regrets that he didn't manage to do it in time.
That would have been nice. Be that as it may, at the trial the criminals apparently didn't show a shred of remorse. They laughed, chatted, and sometimes discussed things animatedly, surprising everyone. The court's decision was not long in coming. Sergei Bugarkov was sentenced to 22 years in a high-security prison, and Elena Bugarkova to 18 years in a general regime colony. She didn't come to Vova's funeral. Apparently she was afraid that people would take justice into their own hands against her. By the way, a similar story happened in the Tula region in 2020. There, a 30-year-old woman who provided intimate services went to another country to earn money, leaving her 5-year-old son in the care of her partner. Her lover, 28-year-old Nikolai, according to acquaintances, accepted the boy as his own. The family lived comfortably and prosperously. However, tragedy struck when Nikolai was alone with his stepson. A few days after the mother's departure, a conflict occurred between the child and Nikolai. The boy's disobedience angered his stepfather. Nikolai hit him on the head a couple of times with all his strength and left him in the crib, then went to sleep himself. When he woke up in the morning, the man noticed that the child showed no signs of life, and it became clear to him that the beating had been fatal. Nikolai, more fearful than regretful, wrapped the body in a blanket at night and buried it in a birch forest to avoid being seen and facing consequences. When the boy's mother returned home, her partner told her about the terrible incident, but she forgave him easily. They decided to go on with their lives and kept the secret for 3 years, until Nikolai went to the police station and confessed everything in detail. In the spring of 2023, he showed investigators the place where the boy's remains were, and in September of 2022, in the Irkutsk region, in the village of Krasnodar, another tragic incident occurred, and once again the main culprit was the stepfather. The 1-year-old baby, whom he had to look after in the absence of his partner, started crying loudly. The crying went on for a long time, and with each new sob, the child became more and more hateful to the man. The stepfather couldn't calm the boy down. In the end, he grabbed the baby by the neck and threw him against the wall multiple times. The child suffered a traumatic brain injury that was incompatible with life. When the mother returned home and saw her son's lifeless body, her partner reassured her. The little boy who was learning to walk just couldn't keep his balance and fell, hitting his head hard. However, the chilling truth still came to light. Police officers found out that the death was caused by the use of physical force, and a 22-year-old man was detained, and he confessed to everything. The difference in this case compared to the previous ones is that the perpetrator was registered with a psychiatrist and was mentally disabled. There are quite a few such cases both in Russia and around the world. Moreover, often one of the spouses agrees to smooth over the other's guilt in order to continue their family life, and none of them have nightmares until the secret sooner or later becomes known.